Hi, can everyone take their seats, please? Now. Thank you. At this point in time, we do not have quorum, but don't fret because we'll consultative body until we do meet quorum. Hopefully that's when we get to the motions. I can say right now we do need people that are not in the Faculty of Arts because we need 100 people from 4 faculties and no more than 50% coming from 1 faculty. So if you do know folks that are not in the Faculty of Arts that can be here, that would be appreciated. Thank you. So my name is Yadida. I'm the speaker. I'm really excited, but we're just going to go through some ground rules about today, specifically how to address people in this body, and then we'll call this meeting to order before that. So members should address only the chair, that's me, or address each other through the chair. That's really important to remember when we're in question period or we're debating. Members should generally avoid mentioning other members' names whenever the person that is involved can be described in any other way. So for example, like, Madam Speaker, may I ask the member to explain X, Y, and Z rather than like, I need this person to explain this. So let's keep things procedural and civil. That being said, it is 4 o'clock on the dot, and I'm going to call this consultative forum to order. Cool. Great. And then we're going to start with our land acknowledgement. SSMU would like to acknowledge that McGill University is situated on the traditional territory of the Gandigahaga, a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst nations. SSMU recognizes and respects the Gandigahaga as the traditional custodians of the lands and waters on which we meet today. We need to next adopt our standing rules. Do we have a motion at this time? We're going to pull up the standing rules. They haven't changed from the fall GA. Do we have any motions at this time? Yes. Motion to adopt the standing rules. That is in order. Do we have a second? Thank you, Isabella. All those in favor of adopting our standing rules, please raise your placard now. Great. All those opposed? Great. This passes our standing rules. Moving on to our approval of the agenda. Are there any amendments or additions at this time? Yes. Can you use a mic if possible? I know, I'm sorry, it's not very accessible. Or you can talk really loudly. Okay, I'll just talk really loudly. Thank you. And say your name and faculty also before you speak.
So Isabel, Arts. I would like to propose to amend the agenda and add the motion regarding smooth support for floor fellow bargaining to new business.
That is in order. Thank you so much. We do need a 3/4 majority to add this to our agenda. All those in favor for adding the motion for floor fellow bargaining, please raise your placard. Can we count? Thanks, Will. This is also procedural, so you do have to vote yes or no. And all those opposed? This passes. Thank you. Great. Any other amendments at this time to the agenda? Yes.
Daniel Laurie, Faculty of Engineering. I would like to make an amendment to the agenda by moving item 6 to item 9, actually item 8, please.
You'd like to amend moving item 6 to item 9 before adjournment? Yeah. Great. That is in order. We do need a 2/3 majority to amend the agenda. So all those in favor for moving the reports of the executive committees to after new business, please raise your placard right now. All those opposed? This also passes. Thank you. All those, yes, Councillor Patterson. Thank you for using the mic. Nope, you got to turn it on.
Can you hear me now? Okay, great. Hi, my name is Elaine Patterson. I'm in arts. This is a point of personal privilege. This has come from our live stream. Hi, everybody on the live stream. You actually do need to use the microphone so that your voice is picked up on the live stream so that people watching at home can hear you. So if you are able, please do come to the microphone to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. If you do want to make a point and you know that you're going to want to speak, just like maybe line up so we can get things moving as well. I'm going to check the quorum now. No, we're still not there. Great. Any other amendments at this time? Seeing as there are none, do we have a motion on the floor to approve our agenda? Marco? That is in order. Do we have a second? Councillor Pourian. Great. All those in favor for approving our agenda? All those opposed? Our agenda's passed. Great. Moving on to question period. Does anybody have any questions at this time? Kevin, do you have a question? Nope. Okay. Yes. Do you mind coming to use the mic if you can?
Hi, I'm Andrew from Arts. I'm wondering what the SMU's official position is on the student councillor or Senator Igor Sadikov.
That question is in order. Do we have any executives that would like to speak to that?
I can speak on behalf of the executive committee. Both our board of directors and our legislative council have met and have put out, well, the board of directors has put out its own statement. However, the executive committee is behind the resignation of Councillor Sadikov, as well as in his role as a director, and does condemn any violence on this campus.
Thank you, Councillor Gare. Any other questions at this time? Great. Seeing as there are none, we'll move on to new business. So we have the policy against ancillary fees. Would the movers like to motivate? Just a reminder also, since we're a consultative body, anything that we vote on won't be actually passed. It'll be taken to legislative council, but it'll be recorded for our minutes.
Can I get a quorum check actually?
Yes, you may. We have quorum, but we need 9 people that are not from the Faculty of Arts.
Okay.
So we need 9 people.
Tell your friends. Okay. Thank you. So this policy is being proposed in order to address some concerns, some longstanding concerns with the way that McGill University structures its non-opt-outable fees. These are known as FIOs, according to government regulation, or ancillary fees, specifically those that are listed up there that we pay as students for student services, for athletics and recreation, and a few other resources on campus. The main concern is that while these fees contribute to this kind of standalone budgets for these units, the university, in terms of the central administration, is effectively charging those units, such as student services, for some of the services that they provide, and using this as a means to take money out of that fee revenue and convert it into kind of the operating budget. That is explained in the body of the motion with a number of citations, so I do encourage you to read through, as it is a little bit confusing. But essentially, over the last several years, students have been consistently advocating to decrease these overhead charges on those units, and that has not happened. In fact, the university has increased them on student services, for example, by over 2,100% from 2010. So in 2010, they were deducting $30,000 approximately from the student services budget. As of this year, they're deducting over $650,000, and this is, of course, the services in the Brown buildings, such as counseling and mental health, the health service, career planning, First People's House, all of these important resources for students. And they've set up this unsustainable model where effectively they will keep doing this and then keep kind of increasing the pressure on these budgets, and then come to students for a fee increase. For example, they've requested that the Legislative Council put forward a question to increase the athletics ancillary fee this term. So we're proposing this policy that would basically bar any new fee increase questions going forward to students in referendum until certain conditions are met by the administration. So if you scroll down to the be it resolved clauses. Yes. So be it resolved that the SMU will not consider referenda questions for new FIOs, FIOs, or increases to existing ones until McGill University implements a moratorium on these increases to overhead charges on those units, including student services, athletics and recreation, and student housing and hospitality services, that they work with student societies to develop a transparent formula for determining those charges, because as of now it's not regulated at all, and that be capped at a maximum of 1.5% of those budgets. And that they provide more information on these fees and where they're going to SMU. And finally, that there be a process for approving the budgets of those units, given that they are primarily funded by students. For example, student services is between 75 and 85% funded by students through these fees. So yeah, I would welcome any questions about the details of this and encourage you to look over the motion for clarification. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Sobat. Does anybody have any questions at this time about this motion or anything regarding this motion at all? This is your time to talk about what you think about this motion. Councillor Gare?
Just for the general student body's information, could any of the movers of the motion explain exactly how much currently students are subsidizing out of the university's budget? In addition, it would be interesting to know what the potential effects are of limiting our ability to sponsor units despite the problematic nature in terms of the effects on services that are given to us. Thank you.
So the exact amount that any given student pays in ancillary fees depends on your status. So if you're part-time or full-time, but for a full-time student in the Faculty of Arts, for example, it amounts to approximately $500 per year, which is more than the total amount of all SMU fees that you pay combined. Again, in terms of the overall budget of student services, for example, that does amount to approximately 75% of their budget that is paid through these fees. At McGill, we also pay the highest level of ancillary fees of any institution in the province. In terms of the effect on these budgets, student services does currently have a surplus that was accumulated for different historical reasons, and they've been effectively spending that down every year with the goal of then coming back to students for a fee increase. What we're proposing is that by preventing them from being able to come to us with an increase, a requested increase, that they will have to bring down these overhead charges in order to account for those like budgetary needs, basically. For example, I mentioned that the overhead charges on student services this year are $650,000. The average starting salary of a counselor or a counseling psychologist in McGill Student Services is approximately $50,000. So there's definitely room for the university to adjust its funding model to support these services that they claim to really value. Furthermore, with athletics, it's possible that they can make changes to the kinds of services and priorities that they are funding. They currently fund varsity programs out of this budget. The recent athletics budget that we've seen also has shown a decrease in some of these charges, and so we know that the university, it is possible for them to make changes to that funding model. Finally, also, I will note that the PGSS council at its meeting last week did vote to reject the proposed referendum question to increase their athletics fee. So that's not unprecedented. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sobat. Any other questions at this time? Yeah.
So my name is Charles, the Faculty of Arts, and my question is pertaining to how SMU expects to the university to abide to these to this motion if the university is able to just withhold funding and show disregard towards the student society in general, as was seen in the case of last week's debacle. How does SMU have any fallbacks if the university decides to not accept these rules?
So just in the context of this motion, ancillary fees are government regulated, so there are certain legal requirements or restrictions around them. For example, any change or increase to these fees needs to go to referendum as per the regulations. However, there are other government regulations that we don't feel are being adequately followed by the university, such as some of the reporting requirements every year, that they must provide certain information to SMU on the finances and distribution of these revenues. So we're currently following up through different channels, such as working with provincial level student federations and other groups about how to better enforce some of those from the provincial level, because those are issues at schools across the province. Specifically in this case, every year or in the past, we have accepted increases to these fees, so the university has had no reason to change its practices. What we're suggesting is that by really putting a stop to that and taking a harder line, that they will have no choice but to adjust their approach, recognizing that they can't continue to tap students for more funding this way. Thanks.
Any other points at this time? Discussion, questions? Thoughts about this motion? Yeah.
Hi, my name's Renee, Arts U3. My question is about how do we guarantee that services won't be cut in the face of this this motion against ancillary fee increases, given that actually we've seen that when fees don't pass, for example, in the context of SMU, even though it's different, this is the university, but we're talking about, this example is about SMU. For example, when fees don't pass in SMU, last year with the base fee increase, we get services cut. So my question again is, how do we ensure that services provided by the university aren't cut if fees are not allowed to be increased?
So we cannot fully guarantee that. However, the university does have certain financial obligations it needs to maintain in terms of, for example, salaries. In the context of student services in particular, I would not expect that, because they do have a surplus that they are using, and they would have to make obviously some adjustments to their budgetary model. Again, we would suggest that they reduce the overhead charges that they are currently levying on that unit. In terms of athletics, there might be some adjustments to the funding priorities. They have indicated, the athletics administration, that they are pursuing other forms of revenue generation, such as increased marketing and sponsorship revenues. But certainly we would need to continue being a voice at the table in terms of what the priorities are for those units when these budget conversations happen. If anything, I would suggest that it strengthens our ability to have a say in what the priorities are and what the overall budget looks like, whereas right now they simply ask us for money, and that's about the extent of our input. So.
Any other thoughts at this time before I ask for any motions? We need one person not from arts to meet quorum. Literally one. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Amar and I'm from management. I wanted to ask that the councillor put forward that we're at a risk that the university might tap us for an addition in fees. So I just wanted to get an idea of how much might the difference or the increase be. Thank you.
So it's going to depend on the fee and the context. I could look up the last time that these fees were increased for student services and athletics, for example, how much they are. But I believe the proposed increase for the athletics fee this term was approximately $7 or $8 for the year. However, I will note that that is an addition. That is an increase to the mandatory ancillary fee, but that's also in addition to other fees that we pay to athletics, such as for facilities and as well as membership of the fitness center, costs for intramural materials, etc. So I recognize that on an individual student level that might not amount to a significant cost for everybody. Overall, we have seen a significant increase in the revenues from all students going to the university from these fee increases.
Thank you, Councillor Sobat. Any other points of discussion at this time or questions? One person. Do I have any points at this time? Points or motions on the floor? The chair will look favorably on a motion to call the question. Councillor Sadikov? I can't hear you. Lay on the table. Interesting. To wait for quorum? That is in order. Chair would look favorably on a 5-minute recess to get quorum, but no one leaves the room.
Point of order?
Yeah.
To clarify, was the motion to lay on the table and move on to the next item of business until we have quorum and then revisit this item?
I believe that was what Councillor Sadikov was speaking to.
I would second that proposal.
We can do that. All those in favor so essentially laying on the table means that we just move on to the next motion and it would get discussed. The next motion, then we would revisit this when we have one more person at this GA, which is exciting. And then we can vote on things. All those in favor for laying on the table till we move on to the next item on the agenda? All those opposed? Great. This passes. Thank you, Councillor Sadikov and Sobat. Yes? Yeah. I will tell you as soon as they leave, because I don't know. Maybe they're just going to the bathroom. Moving on. We have our motion regarding the formal ratification of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Would the mover like to motivate?
All right. Good afternoon, my fellow students. My name is Joelle Moses, and I put forward the motion to have McGill be the first ever educational institute to formally ratify the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. These 17 goals are guiding domestic and international policy towards universal prosperity, peace, and equality by 2030. In 2015, the SDGs were unanimously adopted by all 193 United Nations member states, including Canada. I'd like to quickly review the goals in case anyone is unfamiliar with them. These goals include no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions, and lastly, partnership for the goals. While the goals seek to transform society, they likewise seek to transform the way people understand sustainability. The term sustainability is heavily thrown around in public discourse these days, often used only in the context of environmental issues, implying that climate change is an isolated issue. The SDGs emphasize the urgency of climate action and most significantly highlight that climate change will increase the uncertainty of all other aspects of human development if not acted upon. I'd like to use an example to illustrate the interconnectedness of these goals. Consider goal number 3, good health and well-being. It's impossible to assess good health and well-being without considering the ways in which other dimensions will have an impact on achieving this goal, such as economic inequalities that will enable some and not others to achieve health care, goal number 10. Strong institutions such as hospitals and public health care that can provide means of achieving health, goal 16. Access to clean water and sanitation which may avoid illness in the first place, goal 6. Moreover, goal 12 can highlight the ways in which we might be affecting achievement of this goal globally through our actions here in Canada. Are manufacturing companies the ones polluting the water in the first place and reducing access to clean water? And are we the ones buying goods from these companies without acknowledging these implications? Lastly, impact of climate action, Goal 13, undoubtedly could have huge impacts on achieving good health and well-being. If climate change causes droughts, food insecurities, natural disasters, conflict over resources, or mass migration, working towards good health and well-being will be heavily compromised. I think that this example reflects the frameworks that the SDGs promote. The SDGs emphasize that issues which we now once saw as local are now global. All of our actions here have implications and potentially serious consequences all over the world. Many people have dismissed the SDGs on the basis of criticisms such as being overly idealistic, for being difficult to quantify and enforce, and because the UN holds no real jurisdiction to hold governments accountable for their implementation. And all of these criticisms are valid. However, I believe that the prevalent trend to dismiss rather than understand these goals is extremely dangerous. The SDGs were framed as goals for a reason. They are not specific intangible steps, but rather provide a framework which fosters collaborations to direct policy and shape the way we think about sustainability. This ratification is imperative, as changing the way that we think about sustainability must first be accomplished before we can change the way we act. This ratification is a collective promise as a student body to work towards common goals. And along with this ratification comes a responsibility. It may be used as a catalyst to lead students towards internalizing the severity of issues of sustainability and understanding each of our roles within it, a vital step towards meaningful action. This ratification can give students an inspiration, a voice of authority, and a purpose. Beyond the symbolism of this ratification, we must commit to finding ways to implement the SDG framework into existing SMU policy and work to incorporate them into school curriculums, events, and no less significantly, into the small actions we take daily. I believe that it is absolutely fundamental to ingrain the importance of the SDGs into our lives now, as sustainability will inevitably become an increasingly vital aspect of every profession and every aspect of our lives. As a student body filled with the future holders of significant economic, social, and political power, I feel as though as a collective, we hold a momentous capacity for influence. Most importantly, this ratification can serve as a link to the awareness and commitment to sustainability that is already so strong here on the McGill campus to a recognized global effort. The existing SMU sustainability policy is comprehensive and commendable, though not sufficient. Section 1.3 of the SMU sustainability policy states their commitment to show leadership beyond the SMU bureaucracy and into the broader society and community. And I believe that ratifying the SDGs will do just such. The environmental movement has been around for ages, but the urgency of climate change now is stronger than ever, particularly at a time when extremely powerful people such as Donald Trump are working to delegitimize climate action. Thus, it is time for us to step up. McGill is a highly regarded school internationally, and thus has both the power and responsibility to take bold actions towards sustainable development. Moreover, I think that being the first ever educational institute to formally ratify these goals could have tremendous implications. This could not only spur action within McGill's student body, but moreover within schools and institutions worldwide, which can undeniably also help pressure our governments and powerful decision makers to do more. I believe that McGill's student body must translate our passion and commitment to sustainability into leading by example and being the first ever educational institute to formally ratify the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any questions at this time about this motion? Yeah, Councillor
Gare. So first of all, thank you. Second of all, we have quorum, just so everyone knows. Yeah, that can, nice. And then third, so just taking a look at this motion, it looks really great. I just wanted to know if the movers would, be, I guess, open to potentially having some of those be it resolved clauses or a potential other be it resolved clause, including some specific mandate for a specific executive. So potentially, if I might make a suggestion for someone else to move a be it resolved clause mandating the Vice President University Affairs to, I guess, advocate to the university to take a formal stance endorsing these as well, or the Vice President Operations, or soon to be Sustainability and Operations. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Yeah. Victor, do you mind scrolling down on the motion? Great. Do you have a question? Do you have an answer to that? You can answer that question.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I actually do have a few specific things that that I had in mind for the SMU sustainability policy that I thought of, as well as the things on campus and beyond. But firstly, I know that SMU holds a council meeting at the beginning of every year to discuss their sustainability policy, and I think that that would be a great opportunity for them to discuss how they can implement the SDG framework into their existing policy. As well, I know that SMU acts as a coordination role to facilitate the efforts on campus between clubs and professors and all different sorts of committees that have to do with the environment. And currently, I know that the SMU Environment Committee works with the Sustainability Coordinator weekly to hear updates on projects that are already underway and what's going on campus. And one of my ideas was that they can also speak and coordinate with the 40 other clubs that are working towards the sustainable development goals, whether they know it or not, to extend that coordination and sort of work together for these goals collectively. Lastly, I know that SMU implements sustainability audit for all clubs and services and indicates in their financial reportings for the clubs to report on their sustainability practices, as well as I know SMU provides training to the clubs and committees at the beginning of the year, so they could implement the SDGs into these audits and into their training. And lastly, something that SMU could do is just provide information on their website under sustainability that discusses these goals and brings it to people's awareness if they want to look into it further. But I don't know if anyone else from the SMU exec would like to?
Councillor Megder?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to come present this motion to us. And first of all, I think all of those ideas are good ones. And I think to make it even more powerful, I would suggest that there be an amendment to add those formally as be it resolved clauses to this motion to make it certain that the fantastic ideas that you've just brought forward get translated into specific actions, specifically mandating SMU Environment Committee to take a role in helping to promote these, I think is something that should absolutely be a be it resolved clause. And I do also agree with Councillor Gurr's suggestion to mandate specific VPs, including sustainability and operations and university affairs, to take an active role in advocating on behalf of that as well. So great ideas, and yes, I do think those should be formally added because I personally do support each one of those.
So any amendments that are considered on the floor, since we've met quorum and we're discussing like in actualities now, they're part of everyone that's here now. So any amendments that are friendly would have to be voted by everyone else. So any amendments that we're going to add to your motion, if that makes sense. Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, any other questions we can still continue to discuss before we add any amendments.
Fine, thank you very much. I'm Amar from management, and I wanted to firstly appreciate the presentation that she gave that the councillor gave regarding the legislation and the ratification and stuff. However, I was curious in what might be the specific steps that will follow the ratification, if she could clarify on those.
Sure. Thank you. So in addition to implementing the SMU policy, something that I thought of is even if this GA vote passes, this goes on to the 40,000 students in McGill, their emails, and they see this motion, they say, oh, I don't know what the Sustainable Development Goals are. Maybe I'll search it. Even that small step could have huge implications. What I hope to achieve with this and what I think will be accomplished by this is because the SDGs provide such a holistic look on sustainability, the people that aren't already very passionate necessarily about environmental activism, I think do feel that they will feel passionate about other aspects of sustainability that climate change can influence, which the SDGs highlight. For example, economic growth or peace or food security, I think are important to a lot of people. So that can just get more people involved with engaging with the Sustainable Development Goals as well. An official step that I would like to take after this is outreaching to local MPs, to other schools, to the UN senior advisor who actually came and spoke at McGill a couple of months ago about the SDGs, about how we can help them and how they can help us. And the ratification in itself is a formality that gives the students that are already working towards the sustainability on campus a voice of authority here, because it's a ratification saying the entire student body supports this, and one strong voice is a lot more powerful than an individual one. So that's something that I think the ratification can do. As well, just disseminating the awareness of even the existence of these goals is a huge step. I mean, 95% of people I spoke to about this motion didn't even know what the SDGs were, and I think it's really important to even bring it to people's consciousness to consider themselves if it's something they want to be engaged with or not, and that's something that this ratification can do, as well as the specific steps that I mentioned for SSMU. Another thing that could happen is on campus, because if these clubs are going to be including the SDGs in their goals and their projects, there could be increased events and such on campus that have to do with the SDGs. For example, on the 17th of every month, because there's 17 goals, they could work together to plan an awareness day for the SDGs, Res Project, which goes in and educates first-year students about Race Project, and as well their Consent Project could also do a workshop on sustainability. But the thing is because this is a ratification, it is a formality, and I wish I could stand up here and say that with this ratification, all 40 students are going to commit to sustainability and are going to engage with it. I can't do that with this formality, unfortunately, but what it can do is open up this space for other students, other clubs, other teams to familiarize themselves with these goals and begin engaging in them themselves with more of a voice of authority.
We've extended our 5-minute speaking time about this motion. Do I have a motion to extend debate or question period for this motion? Yes, Councillor Guerre? That is in order. Councillor Guerre did say motion to extend to 5 minutes. Yes. There's a lot of points and orders right now. Yes. Seconded? Great. All those in favor for extending debate for another 5 minutes? All those opposed? This passes. Yes. Just a reminder, name and faculty before you speak.
Hey, what's up? I'm Lucy. I'm in arts. I have a few questions / points, which is that I don't think SSMU is an educational institution, are they? Like, we're a student society, so maybe we should change that. The other point being that Res Project was mentioned. I'm actually a Res Project coordinator. Part of our goals is, like, there are a lot of workshops that have been written for Res Project that include stuff about mental illness. I don't know if there's a sustainability one, but there's definitely a disability one and a religion one. So that being said, if there was like some sort of effort to write a workshop that was about sustainability and that was coming from SSMU, it would be really amazing to get some sort of like funding or support from SSMU. Obviously, SSMU doesn't have any authority over Res Project because Res Project currently is under Res Life, which is under Student Housing and Hospitality Services, which does not fall under the authority of SSMU. But if y'all wanted to collab on some stuff, down for that. And my last point is that I'm kind of opposed to this motion because I feel like it doesn't actually do anything, and we already have motions that do what this is supposed to get SSMU to do, which is to like support sustainability. So yeah, that's just my take. I feel like there are a lot of things that SSMU could adopt as motions that could be a lot more effective in terms of like promoting sustainability. Yeah, so I don't know. That's all. Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead. Would you mind if the mover answers like the question before you're next? Yeah, thank you.
Sure. I just wanted to speak to the last question that was raised about why this is necessary given our efforts right now and the space for potentially other powerful motions. But the thing about this ratification is that it's a symbolic act which can be something that sets an example for the whole international community beyond the McGill campus. There are lots of things that we can do on the McGill campus and that we do on the McGill campus, but this ratification symbolizes, linking our efforts to a global, very recognized effort that's currently been working, like every single government is working on these within the United Nations member states, including our own government. So us ratifying them as such a prestigious and well-known school can help to, tell our governments that, hey, this matters to us and you need to work more towards this. And it can spark, through communicating with other institutions and student bodies as well. Hopefully this could only be the first of many schools that that ratify this as well, because it is a global effort. That's what makes it stand apart from different individual motions that could happen within the McGill student body.
Okay, just want to also just clarify, because I should have clarified this. It's a default speaking time of 1 minute. I've been going a little bit above, so I'm just going to be a little bit more strict about that, but so far we're doing pretty well. Do you have a point or order at the point or motion? Yeah? Sorry, okay, there was one. I was talking to the person at the back because his hand has been up, but I will get to your point right after. Yeah. Is it a point?
Yep.
Okay.
And a motion at the same time.
Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Pierre Mercredis, Natural Resource Sciences. I'm a grad student, so I don't get to vote, but I still get to talk. I'm the president of Enactus McGill, which is part of the World Enactus Network, 87,000 students involved towards achieving these United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So what I propose, what I was thinking about is...
I'm sorry, do you have like a point or a motion at this time?
Yes, that's what I'm getting to.
Oh, you're getting to it? Okay, cool.
What I propose actually is a more tangible approach to implementing these Sustainable Development Goals, similar to what we do with Enactus, when all of the projects or clubs that operate underneath...
I'm going to cut you off again because this doesn't sound like a real motion.
It is.
It is? Okay, so
yes.
Like a motion would be, you have a motion to either like extend, because right now we're in... the 5-minute debate period, right? Okay. So like what I'm hearing is you're suggesting something?
Yeah, that
to the motion?
That clubs and services would have to do like a sustainable development goal audit of the clubs, and clubs would have to do that like they do a financial audit. That's
okay, I'm going to give you speaking time after I've gotten the point. Oh. So that would be like if you wanted to be recognized to just speak, that would just give you an opportunity to speak. It wouldn't be a point or a motion, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Sorry, I should have clarified that. Sorry to cut you off. Do you have your point of parliamentary inquiry? We are in debate period. Yeah. Yes. You can go. Ben, I'm going to take you, sir, and you can come to the front and speak. You have a minute. Yeah. The mic would be appreciated.
Hi, everybody. I'm Greg, U3 in Arts. I'm here to talk against this motion. The UNDP development goals may seem to be a laudable cause, crucial ideals that at first glance can only be supported. The only problem is that behind those goals lay a structure which are at the very core of those issues, and that this structure is fundamentally the global capitalist system. The UNDP, as a global governance institution, is inherently structured within the global capitalist system, which is itself at the core and at the root of global climate crisis, at the core of gender oppression, at the core of a neo-colonial extraction, like a neo-colonial order that works on the extraction of surplus value from the West to the rest of the world. In that sense, the UNDP goals cannot possibly resolve the issues that it aims to resolve. If we want to tackle those issues, there is only one way, and it's to directly impact and target the very same system that is at the core of climate change, at the core of exploitation, at the core of neocolonialism, and at the core of those issues. And so in that sense, we cannot put lip service to bourgeois neoliberal justifications of exploitation. We can only put ourselves in stronger opposition, and yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, Lucy, Arts speaking again. Yeah, I agree with everything that the person who just spoke said. And I also want to add that this idea that we're going to have like a symbolic motion to like, I don't know, guide students or whatever. I think that there are a lot of motions that could be written and that we could vote on that would take concrete action to actually like support these supposed goals that we have. And so just like spitballing here, but like those things could be like supporting Indigenous people who have been affected by these issues in particular, taking a stance against the DAPL pipeline or other pipelines. Yeah, so point being that there are a lot of things that we can actually do, and I don't think we need to take the time to do symbolic things when there are things that we could concretely do to have an effect. And yeah, another thing we could like mobilize to support Divest McGill on campus. I mean, I don't know like what SMU's relationship is to Divest McGill, but yeah. So those are just some examples. Oh, sorry, I'm talking too much. Okay, thanks, bye.
Me raising my gavel is like you have like 5 to 6 seconds left before I hit it. Okay. Great. We only have one more speaker at this time, and I'm going to give the opportunity of the mover to speak if you would like to.
I just wanted to speak to those points. So I can acknowledge that there are a lot of problems within the power imbalances within the UN and with a lot of international institutions. However, what the SDGs do that the Millennial Development Goals didn't do was acknowledge that domestic conditions are different in every country that's ratifying these goals and have different needs. And these goals are the framework for them to pursue those policies that have most importance within those, instead of giving more power to developed countries rather than developing countries. They're for everyone. That's what the point of these goals are, is that they're universal. As well, it is because these goals are broad, we can work against those injustices within the goals with the actions we choose to take at McGill. And just because there's problems with all international politics, that doesn't mean that we should ignore the importance of the need for them. Like I agree there's problems with the UN, but that doesn't mean we don't need the UN. I agree there's problems with the SDGs, but that doesn't mean we don't need to work towards them at all. And yeah.
Thank you. Great, that has exhausted our 5 speakers. Do we have any points or motions at this time? Councillor Gare? You can motion to amend the question, amend the motion.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add on to the end, be it further resolved that the SMU report on their adherence to the SDGs along with their report on its adherence to its sustainability policy, and then beyond that, be it further resolved that the Vice President Operations and Vice President University Affairs advocate to the university to formally endorse the UN's SDGs. Thank you.
Great, we're gonna be voting on this amendment at this time. So an amendment would require a majority to be added to the motion. So all those in favor for adding the, yeah. We can debate the amendment. Would anybody like to debate the amendment? Or speak to the amendment? Seeing as they're, Councillor Sadikoff?
Igor Arts. I'll speak against this amendment. I think it doesn't work with the first resolve clause, which targets McGill rather than SSMU. The SSMU is not a real institution that can reasonably work toward accomplishing the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and as such, reporting on that would only detract from SSMU's existing sustainability policy and reporting that is already in place.
Councillor Gare?
Yeah, that's a super fair point. It's friendly to, at least from the movers' end, to remove the first "be it further resolved" clause regarding to reporting. The first "be it further resolved." Thank you.
Great. Would anybody like to speak for and against this amendment to the amendment? Councillor Magder?
Yeah, I'd speak friendly in support of the motion to amend. Yeah, just I think if one thing is the criticism is that you don't think that there's practical ways that this can actually affect life in McGill, then I think first of all, one thing I want to speak to is the fact that you mentioned earlier that the SSMU is a non-educational institution. I refute that. The the Environment Committee actually does conferences like Spokes, which are inherently to educate the community on issues about sustainability. So I actually do feel that this is relevant, and I further feel that if we want to address your criticism that this isn't finding critical ways as to implement this, then the solution to that is to ask specific VPs to be working on this and to be following the progress to make sure that this actually does create change in this community. So I speak in favor. Thank you.
Great. We are going to vote on the amendment now. Like I said, it requires a majority. Yes? Yep. No. So when a motion is presented to Legislative Council or the General Assembly like we are right now, it becomes property of everyone here. So everyone has to agree to the amendments before we vote on them. Thank you. So at this time, please raise your placard if you are amendable to adding the amendment to the motion. Now, and raise your placard and keep it raised. Can someone help me count? Okay. Someone help me count. I literally can't see. All those opposed? And all those abstaining? Can't vote twice also. I just want to let everyone know. Cool? Can I get some numbers, Kevin and Will? I also need to know what, hold on, I need to know what simple majority is. How many? 41 for, 3 against. It's not even the amount of people that are in this room. Oh. Yeah. 13 abstaining. Oh, Jesus Christ. And I think 1 against. Can we do this again, please? I know, because it just, you have to vote. So it's yes, no, or abstain. We're going to do this one more time. All those in favor for this amendment, please raise your placard and keep it raised. Oh, yeah. Important. Important. This is still for yes. Okay, now, all those opposed? 2. All those abstaining? I saw the two, so like. Damn. Yeah, yeah. Okay, how many?
34, 0 against, and 16
There were 2 people that said no. 16 abstaining? This doesn't pass. No. Were you guys counting both sides?
I count my side. I count that side.
Oh! This passes! Great. Thank you so much. Great. Do we have any other amendments at this time or points or motions? Gray sweater.
I move the previous question.
Call the question? Yeah. That is in order. All those in favor for calling the question, so we're going to be... Great. Raise your placard. You cannot abstain from this. It's a yes or a no. What does it mean? It means that we're going to vote into voting procedure about this motion. Good question. They were doing each side. That's so stupid. All those opposing this. Great, this passes. So now we're going to actually vote on the motion. All those in favor, decorum. This goes by quickly if we're all silent. All those in favor for this motion, please raise your placard. You can abstain for this one.
5, 6, 7.
I can also just like do a minus, like the people against it, you know. But this is also like people are gonna ask what the numbers were. Do you want to tell me? Oh, all those opposing? Oh.
8, 9, 10, 11.
Great. All those abstaining. Great. I'm also doing this very procedurally so that we can get the numbers for our minutes about who voted. Accountability. Mm-hmm. Okay, what about you?
17 for, 16 against, and 9 abstain.
This motion passes. Great. Folks that are, I think that are leaving, but hopefully aren't, it'd be really appreciated if you stayed and voted on the next 2 motions, which are equally as important. Thank you, please. It'll go by really quickly. Yeah. There's also pizzas. If you stay, you get pizza. 7 pizzas. Pizzas are out. Hot, fresh. Sadie's Calf, 2nd floor. Visit it. Please don't leave. Okay, any points or motions at this time? Councillor Sobat.
I'd like to propose to pick up from the table the motion regarding the policy against ancillary fee increases.
That is in order.
And also to get a quorum check.
Quorum check. Hold on.
Damn it.
Sad. So we had postponed the policy on ancillary fees. I'm waiting for the quorum check. I apologize. Councillor Sobat. The numbers seem to be saying the same. Councillor Douglas.
Motion to call the question?
I got to do a quorum check before I do that. I'm sorry.
It's cool. I'm just going to wait.
I think we're good. President Ben, have the folks left the room? Oh, they're going through and checking off right now? We might have it still. Yeah. No, you smell fine. Oh yeah, we lost it. No, we didn't. 100. $14. Should we just do it and like fuck it? Councillor Douglas?
Motion to call the question?
That is in order, Councillor Douglas. So we got a second. Great. All those in favor for calling the question on the policy of ancillary fees, please raise your placard. All those opposed? This passes. Great. Well, we still have quorum. Now we're going to actually vote on the policy. All those in favor for the policy? Yes. Right now we do. So all those in favor for this motion? All those opposed? So it's 2. All those abstaining? Yeah.
34-4, 0 against, 7 abstaining.
Oh. 34-4?
No, 34 or 4.
34, 0, 7? Yeah. This motion also passes. And we still have quorum. Moving on to our final motion. If everyone can just keep quiet, please. Would the mover like to motivate the motion regarding smooth support for floor fellow bargaining?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for sticking around. I'll try and make this as quick as possible. So my name's Isabel Oak. I'm an art student, and I'm one of the people moving. So I represent floor fellows. I am myself a floor fellow, and I also work in a muse as a representative for floor fellows. So floor fellows are a group of 70 upper year students who live and work in residences in order to provide support to first year students as they transition to university. Floor fellows are trained around 70 hours each summer in harm reduction, supporting survivors, community building, and much more in order to do their job. Floor Fellows have been bargaining with McGill for a collective agreement since fall 2014, and we began this process as a response to drastic changes to working conditions put in motion by Student Housing and Hospitality Services, the McGill body in which we are employed, who introduced the residence life management model. Previous attempts to unionize included the firing of and immediate eviction of 2 floor fellows in 2012 for their campus political activism, and 2008 when a building director attempted to introduce a zero tolerance policy for alcohol in residence. In spring 2016, both parties, McGill and MU's bargaining committees, entered into a form of bargaining called arbitration. Both parties were still bargaining, but the collective agreement's ratification could only happen with a third-party arbitrator's signature. On December 6, 2016, both parties ended negotiations and agreed to have the final draft signed on January 9th, 2017. On this day in December, the head negotiator of McGill notified the union that the McGill bargaining team would have to obtain the support of upper administration before the final draft of the collective agreement could be signed. On January 10th, 2017, McGill informed the union MUs that upper administration did not approve of the article pertaining to compensation, and they were essentially backing out of the full agreement, an action which is highly unconventional in bargaining, with good reason. So floor fellows are currently paid $0 an hour and are without a collective agreement, which means we have no recourse to ensure safe and equitable working conditions. We also don't pay any dues because we aren't paid a wage, which means that this is a burden on the union to continue supporting us. The motion we present today is calling for SMU to condemn McGill's actions in bargaining and for SMU to mobilize its membership in order to support floor fellows and their union MUs in their fight for a collective agreement. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions at this time for this motion? We lost quorum by 4 people not in arts. We need 4 people not in arts, ASAP. But you can still ask questions. We are now a consultative body. Any questions? Yeah.
I just wanted to ask that why so many disproportionate amount of students over here are in arts.
I'm going to rule that question out of order unless the mover would like to answer the question because it doesn't pertain to the motion.
I have no idea.
Great. Any other questions at this time before we open it up to debate? Councillor Kevin?
If we have over 100 people and our students leave, do we reach quorum?
No. No. No one should leave. Yeah, you can go. Yes, you can go to the bathroom. Yeah. Any other questions before we open it up to debate? Would anybody like to speak in favor or against this motion? Councillor Guerre?
I'll just speak highly in favor of the motion. I'll also remind people that in the case that this does end up being a consultative body or forum, the motion, whether or not it is passed on to the Legislative Council. That information will be conveyed to them that a majority of people voted for it. In the case that that does happen, I would also like to encourage people to do so. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah.
Nicole Tan Management.
Sorry, could you speak a little louder?
Nicole Tan Management.
Thank you.
Where would the money come from?
Where would the money come from?
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah, so it is a good question. It's something that people have been asking since we unionized. For that, we can't say for sure because we aren't in charge of McGill's finances. But I would say that floor fellows do work a job. So if you can't pay for someone to do a job, like, I mean, yeah, I'm going to say that that would have to be McGill's decision. But floor fellows do work in residences. It's not just camp counseling, and it's not just like partying with students. I mean, it isn't partying with students. So yeah, so that's all I would have to say to that. I can't have a, sorry, I don't know where you went, but yeah.
Councillor Sadikov had his placard raised first.
Yeah, I'll speak to that further in favor of this motion. So residences are a source of income for the university, and floor fellows represent a huge part of the value that is added compared to external residents. So it's only fair that some of that additional income be redistributed back to the floor fellows.
Thank you. Councillor Sobat.
Yeah, that last point was really good. I wanted to also add, I believe it's my understanding that the added cost to the university for remunerating floor fellows would be significantly less than the added costs associated with the signing of the MU's Unit A collective agreement for casual employees. So it's certainly within their ability to take on those costs. I can also point to a number of senior administrator positions whose salaries I would gladly see redirected to these frontline staff services. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sobat. Councillor Cleveland.
Hi. Yeah, if we're still doing the names and faculty thing, William, Arts. As it's probably no surprise, as one of the movers of this motion, I'm in support of this. And to further adjust what was said, it may not have been further fully elucidated in the moving of this motion, but it is against the law to not pay people to do a job, and that's what they've been doing. This is a job that requires sometimes dozens of hours a week to do a lot of frontline work, both dealing with mental health and crises of students. Without this job, either students would not receive the support that they really do need, or they would have to go to some of the more overburdened already resources on campus. So this is not just students asking to get paid for a job, but which in and of itself is reasonable, but also students who are doing a job that requires a ton of training, a ton of emotional labor every week, week after week, 24 hours a day. And I fail to see a strong argument against passing this motion, or for McGill not to pay us or acknowledge the job that we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cleveland. We need now 3 people to reach quorum that are not in arts. Dentistry, PTOT. Councillor, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Simon, third year law. I too would like to echo the previous statements and speak in favor of this motion. I'm not a floor fellow, I'm actually from Montreal, but I've had the privilege of meeting many floor fellows and seeing some of the amazing work they do. And as a law student, I think that they deserve fair treatment and fair recompense for all their work, and so I urge everyone here to vote for this motion.
Thank you. Still need 3 people to reach quorum. Yes.
Hi, I'm Andrew from Arts. It almost seems from what's being said that floor fellows receive almost absolutely nothing from the university in exchange for a significant amount of work. I'd just like to point out they do get free housing and free food, and for everyone living in Montreal, that's not something that can be scoffed at. And so I think we should consider the fact that they do receive significant compensation from the university, and it's costing the university a lot of money, and that the idea that they're getting absolutely nothing should be discarded.
Thank you for the comment. I think there are a couple of people who have things to say, but I'll just start this little bit of the answer with yes, floor fellows do get free room and board at the moment. These are things that we need to do, like we need to get to do our job. So the level of support that we are providing wouldn't be possible if we didn't live in residence, if we didn't frequent the same places that our students do. So I would compare it to like asking a pilot to like pay for their trip, like to fly somewhere, you know, like it doesn't make sense. You're using the resources at hand. They may be benefits, but they're necessary to do the job. I guess it wasn't clear in what way it's necessary to do the job, but floor fellows use their space, like their rooms, as ways to create a space for students to come and like seek support, because residences, not all of them have things like that, especially like private spaces. So, I mean, you wouldn't go to a common room and ask for students to like talk or disclose anything, right? That's why our rooms are so important to the job.
At this time, before we continue, do I have any points or motions? Councillor Laurie? Yep. That's in order. If we don't have any points or motions, we can just continue debate. No, it's just to continue debate. If there's no questions to call the question, then we're just going to continue. Yeah. Floor is yours.
Hi, Daniel Laurie, Faculty of Engineering, U2. I just have a quick question. Is it possible to know how much, like, in terms of the room and board, what that would be, like, in terms of, like, actual money? Like, if you were to make a one-to-one comparison, how much would a floor fellow be earning? Say, hypothetically, if the university decided to pay floor fellows for their room and board and then subsequently charge them for that, how much would that be? Like, so how much is, like, for example, 8 months living in res and then the board on top of that total? Yeah, thanks.
Actually, I'm just going to ask for a clarification. Do you mean if just like a student was living in res, like how much would that be? Or if it's... If floor fellows were living in res, then they would have to pay the maximum amount that the government of Quebec would allow floor fellows to pay for room and board would come to about $52 a week for room and board. So whoever has a calculator can do $50, 35 weeks. And that'll give you how much floor fellows would be paying in total. For students, residence price varies. So, okay, so it'd be $1,750 total for each floor fellow to pay after they get paid minimum wage. Sorry, okay, so yeah. According to Quebec law, someone working and also requiring room and board would only be required to pay a maximum of $52 for room and board. If this was a student living in residence, that's something that we'd have to look into because yeah, the price ranges from building to building. Yeah, but it's about $8,000 a year for students.
Do you have those raising their placard would like to speak, correct? Great. I'm going to let Councillor Carolyn speak before other people, because he hasn't spoken yet.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to speak in support of this motion. I also did have like a quick question. So if you were to be move over to a hourly wage, like paid wage, would you have you asked to be paid at 40 hours a week at minimum wage, or is it like because I'd imagine you work more than 40 hours a week in terms of like the work, the time at night and everything. So has that been like taken into account? Because I'm sure if they were to give that to you, they would also charge you the full amount that they legally can. So I just wondered whether like that balances out. But yeah, I support the motion. So, thank you.
Okay. So the compensation article that was in the final draft of the collective agreement stipulated that floor fellows would be paid 13 hours a week without having to put in a timesheet. And for every hour that's worked above that time, you can put in a timesheet to get remunerated for those times too. For the past 3 years, floor fellows have been filing for back pay at the Commission des Normes du Travail. It's a longer name now, but like that's the division that we're filing with. And from the hours that were put in timesheets that floor fellows like put down their own hours that they worked and presented it to the commission for back pay, the hours ranged between 15 and 25 hours a week. So like on average about like 15 to 25 hours a week that floor fellows work. But the last agreement that we had on the table with McGill, or that McGill proposed to us, was 13 hours baseline per week. If that answers your question.
Hi, Lucy. Again, I'm in arts. I'd like to speak in favor of this motion and also speak to this idea that floor fellows are being compensated or whatever through room and board, and reiterate what Isabel and other people have said, that providing room and board doesn't count as pay when you need to like live there to be able to do your job. And it's actually illegal by like Quebec law at least, but probably also in the US and Canada, that like if you are like working somewhere and you need something to be able to do your job, for example, if you are like, I don't know, a construction worker and you need to like wear a hard hat, or you're like, you like need special shoes to like do construction or whatever, like the employer has to pay that to you. So like this idea that they're being compensated in somehow, like it's not compensation when you're literally being given the tools to be able to do your job. It's like if you had to like do a job and they would just be like, oh, well, I don't know. I had a good example, but then I realized that my example is bad. Yeah, well, I already gave an example, so that's fine. Yeah, so I want to speak in favor of this motion and also say that floor fellows are not being compensated in any way.
Hi, Andrew from Arts. I'd just like to say someone mentioned the figure of $8,000 for residents. It's actually $18,000. And also they mentioned that room and board is required for their job. I would definitely say that rooming is required for the job, but board is not. And many floor fellows, of course, like all other students on campus, eat at different cafeterias depending on where they are in the day or where they happen to be. And they are often always especially at lunchtime, not interacting with the students they're with. So the board costs are not necessary for part of their job, and so that can definitely count as a remuneration.
You can ask a clarification, yeah.
Yeah, I apologize for the $8,000 figure. I was just thinking of room, so that just included like room on average. Yeah, sorry. For 8 months? Okay.
Okay. Person at the back. Yep, you.
Hi, my name is Kavya. I'm in science, and I work as a floor fellow in upper res, and I just wanted to address the last question. While it's true that when we're like dining, for example, we're not always like interacting with students all the time, but like a lot of the relationships that are built in cafeteria as well, like dining with our students. A lot of the more accessible floor events, for example, that everyone can participate in is like having a dinner with your floor, like in the cafeteria, in the common space that's accessible to everyone. So it is not only an important part of community building, but also a lot of us don't have kitchens in the rooms that we live in, so we do need to eat. And the cafeteria is a place to do that. So thanks. Bye.
Any points or motions at this time? Yep, Kaylin? Call the question. We unfortunately can call the question, but we're a consultative body. We're at 98 people, not including the 4 extra people from arts that like don't count towards quorum. So we can vote on this, but it would be taken to Legislative Council this Thursday. Would you be okay with that? Is that a point or question? Oh, wow, there's 2 people talking. Yeah.
It's a motion to extend debate for 5 minutes. I just have a question that I needed to inform my vote.
Yeah, that is also in order. I do need to vote on calling the question first before I entertain the extension. Any other points or motions at this time? Okay, all those in favor for calling the question, please raise your placard right now. All those opposed? This fails. We're going to vote on the extension. Well, if the calling the question fails, we'll just continue with debate. So 5 more minutes, you have it. Go ahead.
Hi there. I'm just wondering if I could get some... Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Shannon Snow Law. So my question is about just a fundamental question of arbitration. So I understand that you agree to arbitration, but then the issue is that, you know, you hold yourself to the decision of the arbitrator. So how can McGill step out of the agreement reached by arbitration if upon agreeing to engage in arbitration, they are binding themselves to the decision?
So the answer to that question is that we were in a period of arbitration, but the arbitrator allowed for like a setup that looked more like bargaining. And in the end, when McGill backed out of the agreement, the arbitrator allowed it. So that's the reason why. So there was no decision. Yeah, there was no decision made.
Councillor Sobat.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a couple last comments on the funding question. I definitely hear the question or the concern about where funding will come from. Just to note, in terms of student housing and hospitality services as a unit, it's not actually funded from the central operating budget. It is funded largely through student rent revenues, as was pointed out in the previous policy against ancillary fees. And that is another unit from which McGill drains quite a lot of money every year through those overhead charges, as well as through a number of loans that they've forced SHUS to take out through the central admin for example, the hotel residences. So I think that that's another clear example of the university using those units as a means of revenue generation. And I think that taking a stance for something like remuneration of floor fellows is sending a message to the admin that we need them to change their funding model and redirect some of those funds to this vital area. And also, I think it's been pointed out before, but not only is accommodation needed for floor fellows to do their job, but it's a significant labor insecurity if you are at risk of losing not only your job, but also your housing if you are fired, for example, or something goes on. And I think also just reiterating the point that the Quebec government has found that McGill must legally pay floor fellows, and they're simply delaying that as long as possible. And I think that it's in the interest of students and residences to ensure that those employees are paid and in a secure position as soon as possible. McGill has been talking a lot lately about developing a healthy learning environment and investing in preventative and frontline resources, for example, and this is a very clear way where they are failing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sobat. Any other points of discussion? Yeah, Renee?
Hi, Renee Arts. My question is, has there been any efforts to look into how practices differ between universities in Canada or peer institutions regarding payment of similar positions such as floor fellows at McGill?
Yeah, there's a wide variety of working conditions for people who essentially do the same job as floor fellow, maybe under different titles. So there are a couple groups of floor fellows who have been unionized, for example, the University of Victoria and the University of Alberta, and are currently bargaining for their first collective agreement. We have situations like in Waterloo where floor fellows aren't paid a wage, but do get the room and board. And you have situations like University of Western Ontario where floor fellows are paid a wage, but they also have to pay for their room. So there's a wide variety of working conditions that floor fellows have been working under in Canada.
Great. Anyone else that would like to speak for or against this motion? Seeing as there are none, the chair would look favorably on. That is in order. So just a reminder, we will still take the, we're not at quorum, so we'll still count the votes, but this will go to Legislative Council this Thursday. So calling the question. All those in favor of calling the question, please raise your placard. All those opposed? Great, this passes. All those in favor for voting for this motion? Will, help. Thanks, Kevin. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Technically, this motion would pass if we did have quorum. That's exciting. But this will be taken to Legislative Council, and the fact that the consultative body did agree in a majority will be taken into consideration as well. Moving on to the next item on our agenda, our reports from the Executive Committee. Woo! VP Operations, you're up first. Highly recommend everyone staying and listening because it's really exciting. Anywhere. Do you want to take one of these mics and then just stand at the front? You can sit. Yeah?
All right. Cool. All right, I guess I'll get started. So first of all, thank you for edition number 2 of State of the Ops. So first I'm going to run through a little bit of what I actually do, since I feel like a lot of people still don't actually know what my job is. So just to give you an idea, I run the building, mostly long-term, especially with Building and Operations Management Committee, implementing Space Fee. Also in charge of GERTS, student-run CAF, mini courses. Next. Sustainability, so working with Environment Committee, helping out with Vision 2020, McGill Waste Management, campus space planning, in which I've been working on construction accessibility. So, first things first, what have we been up to? I've been working on implementing some building projects, first increasing accessibility. We removed the divider, the S1 doors, which means that wheelchairs can get through more easily. We also made sure that every bathroom in the building is wheelchair accessible by putting in new mirrors that can be seen from a wheelchair. We bought 24 new club lockers. We're going to be putting a 20-foot screen and projector right here over the March break. It's going to be awesome. Next. We're going to be, we bought some more equipment for groups to rent out. We actually are getting three-person booths for GERTS, which is going to be awesome. We also bought some more pop-up tents and some barbecues so that people can rent those out for during the year. So that's some of the building projects that we've been implementing and have been working on putting that in. Next. Major space changes, so we made Southside Cafeteria a permanent bookable space, and now we've allowed that to be rented out by student groups, and that's been very successful. Doing event support for Activities Night and Kevin O'Leary as well took up a lot of time. Next. This is now into Sadie's SRC. Working on bringing one-card readers to the student-run CAF. We're still in negotiations with McGill. Some big things that we've noticed from the numbers, although I'm going to let the VP Finance present the specifics. Cost of labor has gone down as our staff get more experienced. Cost of sales has gone down as we've made the way that we run our recipes more efficient. And we've done things like pre-bought vegetables that are pre-cut, so our recipes are now standardized, so we don't have any waste. And the number of sales that we've had has gone up quite a great deal. We've doubled our sales from some of the months that we've recorded. And like I said, I'm going to let the VP Finance present on some of that. Next. Why did we choose the name Sadie's? Well, Sadie was a McGill hero. She actually saved SSMU in 1977 from financial abyss. And not just that, but she came up with the idea for Frosh and helped found the first student residences. So floor fellows, you can thank Sadie Hempy. So that's great. Really happy to be honoring her like that. And it's a throwback to the old Sadie corner, which was an old operation, which was the most successful SSMU operation of all time. We also institutionalized $5 specials, and to help support sustainability, we were trying to reduce the number of cups that are used, so you can get $1.25 coffee if you bring your own reusable mug. Next. Mini courses. This is my biggest improvement this semester. We made 150% the profit that we did in the winter semester. How did we do that? We added 12 new courses, mainly the graphic design courses, which are very popular with some of the McGill administrators as well. We cut courses that weren't successful, ran a course survey in the fall that gave us some information about how we could tweak it, ran a new website, and pushed registration a lot harder this semester. So that's a lot of money that can go straight back into the operating budget to be used on things like building improvements and trying to help put our budget in better situation. So next. So yes, it's a 151% increase in profit from fall semester to winter semester in mini courses. So that's new website, 12 new courses, and then 2 sessions of 4 professional level graphic design courses offered by the highest level graphic design instructor from Concordia. Sustainability, past, present, and future. First, past, Spokes Conference. It was awesome. Y'all missed out if you weren't there. Some highlights were Maggie Barwick from Moisseau Montreal, Cameron Stiff from Compost Montreal, and Philippe Saint-Jean, as well as Julian Freeman as a keynote speaker, who were all fantastic. We are working on implementing our courtyard garden and SPF project that I wrote myself. We got $10,000, planning continues, and we have some very dedicated students that are running that. Get involved, check out jess.dbartolomeo@mail.mcgill.ca, who is the new project lead. SMU will have composting in fall 2017. That is a guarantee. This is something I've been working on with the McGill Waste Management Task Force, who was already expanding it into the Brown building, and I negotiated to have SMU included in that plan. So the problem right now is not actually logistics, it's education. We're trying to find a way of getting high quality compost, since reading the exit reports, the reason why our compost was implemented in the past and was not successful and barely even got 1 useful bag of real compost. So we're trying to create an education campaign and maybe to mobilize some volunteers and to have a plan set up to make sure that that doesn't happen. As well as some institutional changes that need to happen. So, working with facilities and McGill Office of Sustainability to make that happen. Next, I'm working on one of my highest priority items is the Cross-Campus Sustainability Council. I've reached out to every single faculty to recruit members to create this council, which hopefully will be meeting on every bi-weekly basis moving forward, with the goal of trying to align our resources when possible for initiatives that concern the entire campus. So things like, for example, sustainability leader trainings is something I'm going to be proposing at the first meeting, as well as I'm working on a orientation SPF to help make Frosh much more sustainable by using t-shirts that are from sustainable producers, as well as the tote bags as well. So that's that, and to help implement a sustainability coordinator for Frosh. So that's that. Last thing, McGill campus. Basically, I've been working on fighting for accessibility to be incorporated in the construction. Some of the biggest things that have been successful is getting the administration to keep the Brown building open for extended hours to match ours, to keep that accessibility corridor open. I've gotten them to concede on some of the areas where they, for example, if you look at the manholes that are on the lower McTavish, I called them out time after time after time until they finally just paved them over so a wheelchair can roll over them, which is great because that really is just something that's so damn simple. So it's great that they are actually finally listening to loud voices. And if you have any issues you want me to bring up, I meet every other week with the Construction Safety Task Force, and I bring them any accessibility issue that I see. So give me a shout and I'll address it. That's it. Questions?
Hi, I'm Lucy from Arts. So you talked a lot about accessibility, specifically with the bathrooms in the building. There are 2 gender-neutral bathrooms on the 4th floor of the building. I was wondering if any further actions have been taken to make more gender-neutral bathrooms on campus and in SMU specifically.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think the biggest issue at this point would be budget more than anything else. since, especially given last year's budget situation, we just don't have a lot of capital to reinvest in the building. I think that's something that should be planned for. I'm working on creating a long-term building plan, and I think that's something that should probably be included in the long-term building plan, and we should be working to put money aside to make those renovations happen. I think that that's something that should be prioritized, and especially in years to come, there's going to be some major renovations that are going to need to happen. And also, for example, things like, for example, the second floor needs to have an additional women's bathroom, and it can't even be gender neutral, because by Quebec code, it has to be a women's bathroom, because we don't have enough women's bathrooms to meet code in the building. So it's a little more a technical problem than you might expect, and budget is also a big issue right now. But I think it's something that should be planned for, and I'm trying to work on creating a long-term building plan, and if you have suggestions about what we think we should be doing, then I'd really like to hear that. Absolutely. Well, I have to be careful. I could double check the Quebec regulations, but as long as every single bathroom is gender neutral, maybe. I guess that's something that could be done. But I have to make sure that there's nothing that is against, that, for example, considering the fact that we don't have the same number of men's and women's bathrooms, I guess if we did that for all of them, that might be possible. I don't know if that's allowed or not. Maybe. Yeah, actually, that's a really good suggestion. Yeah. Yeah, actually, it's a really good suggestion. I think that's something we can definitely do. So, yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, just so everybody can hear me. Shannon from Law, again, if you need it for minutes. So 2 things. I think that the Center of Gender Advocacy is actually doing research right now, because the building codes and all of this, it's very technical and very vague. And so the Center for Gender Advocacy is actually looking at what the requirements are for gendered washrooms, because I think there are some laws which prohibit existence of only gender neutral washrooms. Yeah, and especially it causes a lot of difficulty with public bathrooms. A lot of the gender neutral washrooms on campus are private bathrooms, and that infrastructure is very expensive. So I think that they're doing that, and they've also challenged a lot of cases, so maybe they'll do it in this case. But my actual comment for standing up here is, I don't know if this is something that's already done by SSMU, but if you're looking into a long-term building plan, maybe doing some sort of consulting with an accessibility consultant is a good idea. At the law faculty, they've hired an accessibility consultant that does things across the board, from like curriculum accessibility to building accessibility. His name is Gift, G-I-F-T,
Yeah,
Suma.
I'm working with him closely on the
Great.
accessibility issues on construction.
Amazing, yeah. So he's been hired by the faculty full-time for a certain period of time. So that kind of work, I think, is really beneficial for long-term planning. So you can plan out what's more short-term available and so on. So that was my suggestion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very, very good one. And yeah, I think I would like to see something. I don't know if, truthfully, I was hoping to be able to be ready to present at least a plan to council, and hopefully see if that's ready by the end of the semester. But even if not, then I would be suggesting to my predecessor to include that in the plan that be proposed. I think that's that has to be paramount in the planning, that the building needs to be universal design. I think that's just there's no question on that.
William, Arts. I was I was wondering what have been the main barriers to implementation of your projects this past semester, and what are your goals / proposed / achievable projects for this coming semester? Thank you.
Yeah. One project that I've struggled with more than I anticipated. I was hoping to be able to create a framework to get Indigenous art for the building, and I didn't really get as much community enthusiasm as I was hoping for, I guess. And maybe that's my part. I guess I didn't write a proposal that the community felt was appropriate enough, and I take responsibility for that. And unfortunately, with the busyness in the past few weeks, I haven't really been able to focus on that. But moving forward, I think that's something that I really need to sort of reflect on and figure out why that didn't work. And yeah, I need to do more work in reaching out to the community and seeing why they weren't as interested in that as I was hoping. So that's one big project that I've hit barriers for, especially with the fact that I didn't realize that the logistics behind that project were a lot more difficult than I anticipated in terms of insurance for that, making sure that you find spaces that artists actually want, and then who decides, and then how do you decide what is even Indigenous art? Is it that's the question, and it's going to be a little more difficult to figure out those specific questions. But I'm trying to figure out what can be done, and at least I'll be passing this off to my successor. And then the second thing, I guess I would say, long-term building planning. This is something that hasn't really been done. Since the VP operations position never existed, there never really was a lot of thought put into what to do with the building in the long term. And honestly, I've started out with a lot of questions and very few answers, and it's just a little ambiguous about where we should even go from here. And we've been doing a lot of background work into what is even possible, and that's even been difficult. But I'm starting to get a clearer picture of what can be done in terms of like the big picture of where do we go for increasing student space and improving the space that we have. And we've done a lot of work that we haven't really been very public about because we don't want to get people excited over things that don't actually materialize. Like I don't want to be like, oh yeah, we're going to get this brand new building in 10 years, and then that doesn't actually happen. So it's been a little disappointing, and I think we have some concrete proposals that are going to come to the table soon.
Great. If there's no other questions, thank you so much. Sasha, woo! You want to just give it to the next person, if you don't mind? And next up on the agenda, we have University Affairs, Aaron Sobat.
Can I use this mic?
You can use any mic you want.
Getting me. Yeah, good. Okay. Thank you. Next slide. Can I just gesture? Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Hi, everyone. So my name is Aaron Sobat. I'm the Vice President, University Affairs at SSMU. Up on the screen, you can see a nice visual overview of my portfolio. So I'm responsible for university representation and advocacy, which includes working with our student senators. Okay, they want me on the screen. Just a moment.
There's a mic right next to the projector.
I'm going to stand here. Working with our student senators, coordinating representation on McGill University committees, working with the VP academics of the different faculty associations, also coordinating research and advocacy initiatives under SSMU, which involves contract research projects, developing policies internally to SSMU as well as on the university side, our equity portfolio, so that includes our complaints process, working with our equity commissioners as well as programming and advocacy, and finally overseeing the distribution of our library improvement fund. So I'm just going to go over some projects that have been completed this year and then some ones that are ongoing. So on the University Affairs side, ongoing Senate meetings, actively asking questions, working with our student senators, have been participating in different reviews of McGill units, and working with the president on advocacy around the Board of Governors, including, you can talk more about that. And we just approved here a policy against ancillary fee increases, which will now go to online ratification, so that's exciting. Other things that are ongoing, negotiations with McGill over our new memorandum of agreement, working still on implementing a fall reading break, and as well on different experiential learning opportunities, including particularly a lot of the great community engagement work and community service learning that the Social Equity and Diversity Education Office coordinates. I'm not going to read every point, but if you want me to go back to anything, let me know. On the research side, we've revised our student rights website, which is smu.ca/student rights, which we also used for our September and now January Know Your Rights outreach campaigns to try and inform students more about their protections under McGill academic policies and how they can address issues when they arise. Last term, the McGill Senate and Board of Governors approved the new policy against sexual violence. However, now it's important that we ensure that we're keeping the university to the implementation of the new steps and resources in that policy. They've moved forward with some, such as setting up a new centralized office for coordinating disclosures, support, response measures, etc. But first of all, communicating those changes out to the community and setting up both an advisory committee to oversee the implementation of the policy, as well as there's going to be kind of a review of the policies associated with formal reporting through disciplinary procedures. So, for example, the Code of Student Conduct, the Code of Student Grievance Procedures is something that will be ongoing for the next year or so. We also, at the fall GA, got a policy, a global access to medicines policy at SSMU, which was then formally approved at the Legislative Council, and that is calling on us to introduce basically a humanitarian licensing framework for pharmaceutical innovations at McGill. This is something that's been established at other universities in Canada and the US, and we're currently working with the Office of Innovation and Partnerships to hopefully pass something along with the revised McGill intellectual property policy that's going to Senate later this term. Cool. In terms of our equity portfolio, we've undertaken some pretty substantial reorganization of our equity policy with the ultimate goal of making that complaints process more accessible to our members. We've held a couple of smaller campus conversation events, which are often small events or closed spaces on different topics. We've also been supporting a successful Sustainability Projects Fund application for a new community projects manager for racialized and ethnic students, which will be responsible for different mentorship and support initiatives. Other things that are going on, we're planning our major speaker event for the year, which will be a comedy night on March 20th with Hari Kundabalu. No, go back. Working to develop with the Joint Board Senate Committee on Equity an online equity training for all McGill students. Working with the president and our HR staff on kind of formalizing some of our equitable hiring practices within SSMU. Supporting a number of accessibility initiatives, including the accessibility standards associated with different capital funds on campus, as well as a universal design for learning website that the Office for Students with Disabilities has been developing for professors and instructors at McGill. So our library improvement fund, we have 2 allocation periods, one in the fall, one in the winter term. This fund is quite large. It amounts to almost $700,000 every year, half coming from student contributions, half coming from alumni. So we made a number of allocations at the end of last term to purchase new charging stations for a number of library branches, to try out some different standing desks, because this was based on student consultation and feedback, to fund different staff positions as well. And this term, we're still accepting proposals until March 6th. If you have ideas for the libraries, we are looking at a number of accessibility initiatives, such as more family-friendly spaces. We always fund 24-hour access in at least McLennan, Law, and Schulich, and now we also fund some extended hours in Islamic Studies and music. And we also have been working with a researcher who is hired by the libraries through this fund to look at open educational resources, which are things like open access textbooks that are licensed to be freely available to students. In terms of consultation and student engagement in the portfolio, we do have a communications platform, I guess, that includes social media, a monthly listserv for student representatives, and a new University Affairs website. We're currently in the process of developing some more resources for that website for students at large, as well as student reps, such as a database of all of our research reports, the ability for students to request that SSMU undertake particular research, and different tools for getting involved in advocacy on campus. We also continue to do different training workshops, for example, for our volunteers for our Know Your Rights campaign, and consultation on different initiatives throughout the year. Just a note on some future projects that we're going to be preparing for, probably for future VP University Affairs. I mentioned some of the policy reviews that will be coming up next year. Again, some of those are related to the disciplinary process on campus. Others are related to accommodations and accessibility, such as the policy on the rights of students with disabilities. We're also continuing to work very heavily on academic accommodations as an issue, including working with the Dean of Students to try and move more faculties to administering accommodations centrally, learning, of course, from faculties that do this and that there are still issues with, such as law, but to try and improve the consistency, particularly in large faculties where a lot of discretion is left up to individual instructors over whether or not they accommodate a student or accept supporting documentation, etc. Also working through a number of research projects as well as with different offices at McGill to improve targeted support resources for different student demographics, such as first-generation students, students coming from foster care, etc. And we'll hopefully be pushing the university to kind of adopt a wider approach to diversity in the student body and supporting those students. Yeah, I think earlier we mentioned kind of McGill's rhetorical commitment to a healthy learning environment. They've been working on the development of a university-wide wellness strategy, and we'll be closely monitoring that to, hopefully see some real monetary commitments to improving preventative and early intervention resources for students and student mental health, but also to improving actually like the institutional structure and policies that do contribute to oftentimes this being a toxic environment. So yeah, I stand for questions.
Hi, Erin. It's not like I see you every 3 days or anything. Okay, my question is about, I guess, accessibility, and perhaps this can tie into libraries. I guess my question being because there seems to be lots of funds there. There is some students in my faculty that require, I think, OCR readers. I'm not sure what that stands for, but basically students who need PDFs, et cetera, to be read so that they can be accessible to their braillers or to whatever kinds of things that they need them for. Right now, it's so difficult to do that through OSD that, especially when we're given many classes across faculties, I'm sure this is the case, but we're given materials sometimes, up until the day the class starts, and even during. And I know that people are sometimes relegated to relying on family members to do that for them. And that is just simply unacceptable. I mean, I think really this is a Quebec government issue, but in the meantime, since that is so slow, I wonder if there's some way that we can capitalize on the resources within the university to make OCR reading more accessible to students that need it.
Absolutely, great question. So in terms of optical character recognition, there is an issue obviously with different course materials and PDFs not being compatible with the current technologies. So on our end, what we're trying to do, because we are aware of this, is when students come to us with these kinds of issues, be aware of the different funding sources or avenues through which they could address this. So one is possibly through the Library Improvement Fund. We have had a discussion with the library administration and are going to be reaching out to OSD about their needs in that area, because we can purchase software and hardware specifically to have in the libraries. However, that doesn't apply to all locations. Like, I don't think it actually applies to the law computer lab in New Chancellor Day Hall, for example. The other route is with teaching and learning services. They're launching a new committee to look at any kinds of course centrally licensed course technologies that they should be maybe purchasing to facilitate interactions with My Courses, for example. I know also that on the front of the open educational resources, there might be some opportunities there, because Canada just signed the Marrakesh Treaty, which works to make different licensed written materials accessible outside of copyright for making them compatible, OCR reader compatible. So those are just a few of the avenues that we're aware of that issue. If there are issues particular to your faculty, we're also happy to have a conversation about how we might facilitate changes within a faculty, because also there might be funding available for different, either in terms of capital funding for computer labs or software as well. Good question.
Great. Thank you so much, Aaron. Moving on to VP Internal, Daniel Laurie. Yay. Gotta turn the mic on.
Hello everyone, I'm Daniel Laurie, the Vice President Internal Affairs. I'll give you a quick run through of my portfolio, but basically this is what I have on the agenda for tonight. If you could go back a slide so I can read that out. Awesome. So I'm basically going to go through a quick summary of what my position is, go through the three main focus areas, which are going to be communications, engagement, and events, and first-year outreach. And I'll go talk a bit about how this position is going to be changing over the course of the next year and what I want to continue and so on and so forth. So moving forward, this is an excerpt from the Constitution. Basically, it's to give a quick summary. I'm in charge of the communication of the society. I'm in charge of outreach to individual faculties to make sure everyone's on board with the same thing. I coordinate the programming and events of the society, as well as some services specifically for first years. I also oversee all the publications of the society. So if we can move to the next slide. Perfect. So again, going over the three areas of focus, I'll be talking about mainly communications, engagements, and our first year outreach. So first of all goes communications. So as you can see, I have a, can I go to the next slide, please? As you can see here, I have a graph of the past 3 years of SSMU listservs. As you can see, there are gaps in the data. That is basically when either McGill, the McGill spam filter does block the listservs from being received from students, so they go immediately into your junk mail, and only around 5% to around 15% of people read those emails. But as you can see, I am the blue line. I'm consistently above average over the past 2 years. Thank you very much. So basically, at the beginning of this year, I had redesigned the listserv and tried to maintain and have a less political message in the listserv, and specifically catering to more of a blog style approach so that people were more open to reading the listserv, and that has worked. Also, in terms of other communication aspects, on the next slide I do have another graph which goes through all of the emails that we have sent throughout this whole year and their specific read rates. But to quickly talk about the website redesign, again, that was halted in the first semester of last year, but I have been open to talks with other student groups such as Simvo at possibly having a student-led website redesign, which is something that we're hopefully looking into doing. But again, we do have a large budget for this project, so we're also looking at professional companies. If I go quickly to talk about our social media, that took a hit last week, so yeah, it's not as good as it used to be, but yeah. Anyway, moving forward. So if you could go back to that graph actually, so I could talk about it. So as you can see, all the emails using the MailChimp analysis have been consistently above 30%. We're actually getting quite a high read rate for our emails this year, which is really great, which means that student engagement is getting better. And hopefully we can continue that in the years to come, and hopefully the design of the listserv will stay similar to as it is right now. There are room for improvements, though, that I've heard from students that they would like to see some of the services incorporated directly into the initial blurb. So looking specifically at the events that I'm planning for this semester, those work in conjunction with SPIN. So one of the biggest events that we are planning this semester is Faculty Olympics, Survival of the Littest, which is based on the TV show, if you guys have seen Survivor. That's taking up a lot of my time. It is an event for above 800 people. It's going to take place over the 5 days. It is going from March 6th to March 10th. If you guys haven't paid and are not attending, it's too bad. That's closed. Moving forward, going back to the last slide, or moving forward, perfect. Next slide, please. So again, McLan is an event that will be happening 2 weeks after Faculty Olympics. That is going to be happening here in the ballroom and downstairs. Basically, it's going to be the first esports tournament happening here at McGill. There's a $20 ticket price. It's going to be really big. It's going to be a lot of exciting. There's going to be cash prize and everything like that. So hopefully, guys, if you're interested, we'll come out to that event. We're aiming for around 200 people to show up, so that's going to be exciting. Hopefully it can grow from there. Another very important program that we've been working on a lot this semester is Life Aid, which is life after your degree. We've had a ton of Brazen events. If you don't know, Brazen is an online conference room software where you can log in and talk to different log into different rooms and talk to different people who are in those rooms, basically who have all the information that you want to. We've had Last week we actually had Life After Your Degree as a racial minority, which is great. And we also had another event for mental health during Mental Health Week, which was also amazing. We also had what's it called? A LinkedIn head shoot, which had over 150 people attend, which was great at the same time as getting your CV and everything checked out, which is also very successful. So as we've moved away from having Red and White Week, which was simply 1 month of this life after your degree sort of planning, we've moved to this sort of year-long process that this is always at the back of your mind so you can remember the end goal of your time at university, which is great. So moving forward, I'll talk about first-year outreach. As you know, Frosh is on the way, so that is going to be taking up a lot of my time in the future. I have yet to have an IOC meeting, which is the internals meeting, where we all sit down and basically talk about how Frosh is going to work. But having talked to a lot of the internals myself so far, the current MOA, although it needs to be re-signed for this coming year, is a very functional base to work from. So the model that we have where every single faculty has an individual vote in terms of what is happening as the whole, instead of having the SMU dictate to all the faculties what is going to be happening, is going to be a model that's going to be continued. So basically, it's going to be a long process of training. We actually have an event next week for O staff and Frosh leaders, which is going to be great. It's a brazen event. I'll be there, so you can chat me up in one of the rooms. Woohoo! But yeah, basically this model for Frosh is going to be how it's going to be in the future. I'm looking forward to continuing that and institutionalizing it further. Moving forward, I'll talk a little bit about FYC. FYC has, again, been going through a bit of a rough patch this year. We did have a resignation of the VP internal, which was then renominated and selected by, with my approval. They've actually been hosting a lot of events this year and have been playing more of a supportive role to other first-year organizations. By providing funding and collaborating in terms of event planning and stuff like that, which is really great. Yeah. So what's next for this portfolio? Ultimately, a lot of, as this is a super like projects-based portfolio, the next incoming internal, I'll give them good training and everything, and yeah, whatever. Awesome. Thank you. Woo. Any questions?
Questions for VP Lori? Cleveland, go ahead. It's not empty. There's
It's not
people
empty,
here.
and it is important. And this will still get written up, so it's important. William, Faculty of Arts. My question is, in what ways will you stress critical issues like consent and sexual assault prevention at this upcoming Faculty Olympics?
Okay, so that is a really big issue that we've been working a lot on this year. We've actually signed an MOU with the school, so working with Chris Buttle this year to institutionalize the code of conduct for this for all the students involved in this event. So basically, the whole plan is to bring these underground events that are happening at the university and bring them to the light of the administration, so they're fully aware of what's happening, while at the same time maintaining that what we're doing is in fact safe. Another thing that we're doing this year is we do have a video waiver that we'll be showing all our participants. We do have advanced sexual assault and substance use training instead of the more simple consent training, which at this point, if you're a captain for one of these events, you need to be fully aware of all the procedures, what the university's stance is on these issues, the sexual assault policy of the school, and so on and so forth. So that's what we're hoping to do to further rid these events of these sort of problems, but this is hopefully like a step in the right direction. So thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing as there are none, thank you so much, VP Lori. Moving on to Elaine Patterson. Student life. Woo! Shout out to the press. Woo! Thank you for everyone that's here. Woo! Is it dark outside?
Yes, it got dark outside a while back. You did.
It's been quite a day.
Hi, everybody. My name is Elaine Patterson. For those of you I may not know, I think that I actually know all of you. Hey. And since I know all of you in the capacity of a SMU, I'm fairly certain that you're very well aware of what the Student Life Portfolio does. Just for a show of hands and to see if anybody's paying attention, who wants me to go over the role of the Vice President Student Life? Wow, thank you so much. I can talk about it a little bit. So the Student Life Portfolio exists to manage the relations between SMU, its clubs, its services, and its independent student groups. So I really facilitate communications between SMU and those student groups. I facilitate communications between student groups themselves. And I also act as institutional support for them. And that ranges from a very broad range of different things. Basically, the three different categories of student groups are clubs, which are smaller, a little bit more event-based. We have 234 of them exactly. We also have 15 SMU services. Our newest SMU service is the Peer Support Center. All of our services have physical space in this building, so you can go ahead and visit them and access them and use them as a resource. And independent student groups are their own nonprofit organizations, but they are recognized by and affiliated with the SMU. I also facilitate mental health initiatives, and I follow through on action items regarding the mental health plan and policy that was implemented by SMU about 3 years ago now. I have a note on that coming up later in my slide as well. And I liaise with student services, which are the 11 student services next door in the Brown building, but also 2 of those services, Office for Students with Disabilities down by the library, and then the First People's House over on Peel Street are part of that as well. And I adhere to mandates outlined by SMU's family care policy, which is very important and helps out students with dependents. Cool. So with clubs, wow, I'm really sorry, it's really tiny. Not that anybody's looking up here, LOL. So there are multiple student groups that are incorporated now into the My Involvement platform. For those of you that may not remember, the My Involvement platform offers the co-curricular record. So student executives that would like to be recognized or get like record or credit for doing their executive jobs can do so and can print off a transcript of their extracurricular involvement at McGill. So there are, I think, roughly 200 groups that have been integrated onto this platform, and we're still working on integrating more because there are over 250 different student groups affiliated with SMU on campus, not to mention all the other student groups that exist. And basically, there's been like an update to the software that is being offered by like the My Involvement software. So now we're going to work towards being able to offer co-curricular credit for students that are general members of student groups, not necessarily just student executives, which is really cool because involvement is a range of things, not just being an executive of a group. There's also the student group tile on the McGill app, which was just launched roughly 2 weeks ago. If anybody has the McGill app on their phone, it's largely used for orientation activities and signing up for orientation events. But now there's also an opportunity to get involved by signing up to get push notifications from different student groups that interest you. You can also sign up for like participating on the wall of that student group. Student groups can also create their own events on the McGill app and can create a QR code that students can use to sign into an event, which is pretty cool. And I know that I'm working with the VP internal to kind of implement that into some of SMU's event planning as well, since it's a pretty secure system. The Club Workshop Handbook is something that I worked on last semester that is now complete and will be going up on the SMU website before the end of the week. So that will be a resource on how to run a club. It includes all kinds of information that's covered in club workshops, but also information regarding club audits and just mostly frequently asked questions in general, and it looks really spiffy. And let's see here. Oh, the club committee is primarily looking at club constitutional amendments this year. Many of you may know that there's currently a moratorium on new club applications. That's due to a lot of resource constraints on SMU's end. But we're taking this year to really focus on amending existing clubs' constitutions. We're also taking a look at the rubrics that student groups or students use to apply for interim club status and full club status. We noticed some things with those rubrics that were just kind of difficult to grade. And so we're going to look into adjusting those rubrics and making them a little bit easier for students to follow and a little bit more easy for the committee to fill out when looking at different things. In terms of SMU services, I really deal with general service administrative support. So since the services exist in this building, sometimes it ranges from helping them out with office renovations that are happening. Sometimes it ranges to helping out with maybe complaints, things like that. So I really just help out with administrative support in general. The Services Review Committee is reviewing each service over the course of this academic year using many different criteria. We're using a self-support survey. We're going to be sending out a user survey for users to write down how they've interacted with the service and how they've accessed it and what their experience was like. We also are doing audits of the service in person, so user audits. Members of our committee are accessing services as if they are regular students. So yeah, that's what Services Review Committee is working on. And then the Winter Services Summit will take place in March post-reading week. It's going to primarily look at service accomplishments that happened throughout this year because there have been so many. And we're going to talk about elections and transition for service executives. Next slide. So for independent student groups, as a lot of you know, there are a lot of student groups on campus that are transitioning into the independent student group status. And the main thing that independent student groups need to have in order to be considered independent from SMU is they need to be their own legal entity. So some of our, all of our independent student groups right now are considered their own nonprofit organizations, but not every independent student group has to be a nonprofit organization. They can be a legal entity that's simply separate from SMU. Legal entities incur many less costs, fewer costs, excuse me. And so we're working on, transitioning those student groups into independent student group status, and I hope to have every student group in a stable position by the end of my term, so that's one of my main goals going on there. Mental Health Awareness Week took place in January from the 23rd to the 29th. I highly recommend to whoever enters this position after me to host Mental Health Awareness Week in the winter semester again. It was so nice to have it in the winter semester. We had more time to plan everything out, and more people were able to help out during the event, which was great. We're hosting the second semester mental health roundtable in March. That's going to be focused on intersectional mental health, so groups such as Black Students Network, Queer McGill, and the Union for Gender Empowerment and others will be invited to talk about mental health and how marginalized groups are affected by mental health as well, and how our existing mental health resources can better support marginalized groups. And the Mental Health Advocacy Committee is working on a midterm review of that mental health plan and policy that I mentioned earlier in my presentation. So because we're midway through that policy and plan being implemented, I decided to kind of have the Mental Health Committee look over everything that's been happening, see what's been accomplished, see what things we still have to do, and just review those goals and make sure that they're tangible goals, maybe add a few extra goals as well. So that's what's happening in mental health. In student services, there is now a new senior director of student services who started their job position in January. I liaise with them along with the vice president university affairs. This person is like a permanent position, no longer an interim position, so I'm hoping that there's going to be a little bit more stability in student services. I anticipate there being more stability. I also sit on the committee of student services, for those of you who are unaware, and I'm working towards facilitating consultation between mental health and counseling services and students, since there has been a significant lack of consultation of the student body regarding the integration of mental health and counseling over the course of the past year. And finally, the last slide on family care. So I've been working with a family care coordinator from SEED, programs that are offered to students with dependents, specifically Collective Kitchen and Study Saturdays, which are weekend programs that offer volunteer babysitting for students with dependents while they participate in different activities or while they do their homework or things such as that. Currently, Collective Kitchen has a Seeds of Change crowdfunding campaign going on. We just launched it about a month ago, I believe, and it's going to be open all the way through the end of March. It might even go a little bit into the beginning of April, but we're hoping to raise up to $2,000 for Collective Kitchen because it's a really fantastic program. And yeah, please consider donating. I can send you all the link. So that's it on family care. And then in terms of other projects, we're working on the implementation of the menstrual hygiene products policy right now. So that's pretty exciting. But that's all that I've got today. Thanks for listening, the 15 of you who are here.
Any questions for Elaine? Bill Cleveland?
I want the record to show my name is William, not Bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is short. At what point do you think this club moratorium may end?
That's a good question. Honestly, I do believe that this club moratorium could be lifted in the fall 2017 semester. I think that largely it was put into place because there were resource constraints in terms of human resources. There were not a lot of student staff helping out the Vice President Clubs and Services last year. The Vice President Clubs and Services last year was stretched extremely thin. So I think that just human resources in general, there weren't enough people to be able to help all 230 some clubs that we have. Let alone try to help clubs that are kind of just getting off the ground. As of right now, we have a club commissioner and a club administrative assistant. The club administrative assistant is a rock, and she's returning next year, which I'm so excited about. And the club commissioner will be not returning, but I know that we'll be able to find somebody who's fantastic in that position as well. Additionally, with the reshuffling of the executive positions that happened last year, this position has a little bit less to handle in terms of building management side of things, which really does, it really did take up a lot of time of the Vice President Clubs and Services last year. So now with a little bit more of a balanced plate, I'm pretty confident that human resources wise, we're covered. In terms of financial resources, really, the club fund that was passed last winter semester has helped so much. I know that there are a lot of student groups that have been able to apply for funding that weren't able to get funding last year. So I'm really happy that that is a resource now that's available for student groups, and that will be there for more student groups to partake in. And then the other resource constraint that we were facing that I think a lot of people underestimate is spatial constraints. And space is like a tragedy across campus right now. There's not space to do anything. But one of the things that was done last year was, although many clubs ended up losing their club offices, a lot of clubs were working towards offering storage for them. And so, as the Vice President of Operations mentioned in his report earlier tonight, one of the things that we're doing, or one of the things that has been done, is club lockers have been installed, or another set of club lockers have been installed on the 4th floor. And student groups can start, well, clubs specifically can start using those lockers as well for storage, for promotional materials, things like that. So providing more space such as that. Additionally, a lot of you may not know, but the 2nd floor Southside cafeteria used to not be a bookable space, but just last fall semester it became a bookable space, so student groups could use that as an event space or a practice space or a meeting space or what have you. And now they're able to use that, so we're trying to offer different things in terms of spatial resources for student groups to use. So with those 3 main resources kind of being covered this year and being worked out, I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to lift the club moratorium in the fall semester. I would lift it now, but I don't want to lift it mid-semester simply because I don't want, I just think that it's more consistent to have it be lifted at the beginning of a semester. So, yeah.
Any other questions for Elaine? If not, we'll move on to our second last report from the finance man, aka the person who does the Excel spreadsheets and money stuff, currency.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Those are all excellent words. So moving, I'm going to give really brief overview, kind of at a high level of what my responsibilities are and what I've been up to this year. So in the short term, my responsibilities are set up, yeah, I know, stop squinting, Ben. In the short term, my responsibilities are largely setting global and department budgets, checking in with managers of those departments to ensure that sales targets are met and also that the budgets are kind of kept on target month over month. I help with the aiding of planning and execution of student-run events, so that's kind of largely through, shout out to Dan Laurie, guy at the back there, making sure that we don't lose money on those, and then also the funding and audit process for all SMU clubs. In terms of long-term, the high-level stuff is managing the Capital Expenditure Reserve Fund, also called SURF. That's really ensuring that we have appropriate levels of cash on hand, cash equivalents, and that our when term deposits come up for renewal, that we're either exercising those term deposits or reinvesting them based on kind of the needs of society during that time period. And then, again, ensuring that the Health and Dental Reserve Fund balance is on track with the full term of the plan. The plan is administered over 5 years, and we need to ensure in tandem with ASEC Student Care health provider that we have enough money in the fund to be able to make the payments. So now I'm going to quickly go over operational performance of the society. So I've benchmarked this over last year. Anything in red means we lost money. Anything in green means we made money. So here are the 4 main kind of areas of revenue generation that we have for the society. It's a student-run cafe. Sorry that I put SRC. It's now Sadie's. It's still in accounting forms. And I'm in my head's with accounting, so it's still SRC. Last year, at this point, and so sorry, just for context, all of these numbers is everything we have made or lost up until the end of January this year. So, and it's compared with last year. So at this point last year, the SRC was $92,000 in the hole. This year, we are $55,000 in the hole. So cut the deficit in about half. Obviously, that's not break even, and that was something that I was trying to get as close to as possible. However, cutting that deficit in half has gone a great way in ensuring that our kind of global budget isn't heavily affected by that one department, as it was last year. Moving into GERTS, sorry, Victor, you stick on that. So GERTS at this point last year, $4,000 deficit. This year we've effectively at a break-even point, and the reason why it's showing a very modest deficit there is because of the inactivity over the December month. So this month follows, January follows December, if any of you are familiar with the calendar. And in December, we only have 16 days that the operations are open. However, we are incurring salary expenses that whole time. So in December, we see a dip, and in January, we see a rise. So that's kind of leveling out there. And I'm fully confident that GERTS will be posting a surplus by year end. Mini courses, again, that 31,000 is actually quite inflated because we haven't incurred the expense of paying out the instructors for this fall term. However, Sasha went over those numbers in detail in his presentation, and I think we're confident it'll be about 15, right? Perfect. Yeah, that's where I thought it was at. So that is a little inflated, and then events has been doing very well. Also, we've been setting directives through Alessandro, and he's been doing very well within the building. And again, yeah, there's 17 grand that we've made on top of last year there. So all in all, I'm incredibly happy with operational performance of the society. You can see across all departments last year, there was a net deficit of 65,000, and this year, even with that inflated, there's the current year to date is in the positive, and it reflects, a roughly $65,000 positive variance. So I think everyone should be really happy about that. Okay, moving forward with more boring numbers. Yeah, and even harder to see. Great. Okay, so, all right, thanks, Victor. So the things that I've highlighted here, I could have gone through every line and done that, but I did not have time over the last 2 weeks. Because you know why. So let's actually, I'm gonna hit the largest departments here when we're making or losing the most money. So general administration, 3021, JABMIN, as it's affectionately known within the society, is the big heavy hitter. So that we incur like $1.2 to $1.3 million in expense budgeted every year. And then, okay, so here, keep going a bit, Victor. You got it, yeah. So we can see here that this number, yeah, that's good. That number on the bottom, on the right, 883,795, that is what we are budgeted for at this point in the year. At this point, we have only posted 688,000. So just in that one department alone, up until this point in the year, we've incurred cost savings of almost $200,000. So, and again, there are other large departments such as security and building that we've also managed to kind of create a lot of cost savings through. So a few reasons why or ways that we've been able to achieve this is no longer providing in-house security. We contract that out to Elite Security. That has enabled us to really have agents on as we need them. And obviously there are other issues with that. However, we have, it's positively affected the budget, which is great. And so, yeah, if you can just zoom back out, Victor. That's it. And I'm happy to kind of go over that in more detail, or if people would like to follow up with me, all those numbers will be available online. So I think that's the end. Oh no, it's not. Projects update. Fantastic. Okay, so these are the 4 main things that I wanted to get done this year, kind of in order of importance. The first was to reduce our deficit. Last year we posted an operational deficit of $90,000. Zach Houston, the previous VP Finance, set the budgetary goal this year of posting a $100,000 surplus. So that means that at the end of the year, if net's at 0, we should be making 100K, and then all that money we reinvest back into our capital expenditure reserve fund. So last year when we lost 90 grand, we had to take 90 grand from SURF. This year we're budgeting to put 100 grand back. So that was kind of the challenge that was set, and I'm very pleased to kind of conservatively expect that we will be surpassing that that goal point by $100,000 to $150,000. So that will end us with a year-end final surplus of $200,000 to $250,000. What? Yeah, it's awesome. I'm super happy about that. That's awesome. That's really cool. Okay, so. And all of this additional money will be reinvested back into the society and go to support departments that have kind of have been not neglected, but have had to kind of suffer as a consequence of the poor previous operational budget. Moving on to funding, we've implemented a new funding platform. Huge thank you to Arisha Khan, the funding commissioner in the audience, who's been doing all the work on that. And also in the previous semester, we made a few changes in regarding to the requirements to apply to funds. So student groups no longer have to apply 1 application per fund. They can also, we also did away with mandatory second installments on all reports. The socially responsible investment fund is something that now that we're confident in our long-term financial stability, I'll be pursuing much more intently this semester with the hope that the fund will be implemented by the end of my term. And I will also be working with the president to ensure that there's student involvement in the review of those socially responsible investments. And then lastly, and something I have to say with regret, is that the project in terms of producing financial information up to date ideally I would have done it every month. Didn't happen due to personal capacity and also just kind of the way that I was prioritizing my projects in terms of the financial sustainability of the society. That was put on the back burner, and I do regret that. So I will be looking into hopefully hiring, perhaps delegating it to a student staff member, and at the very least ensuring that that project, that there's a student staff member to take control of that project for the next year. So so that the decision is already made on that. And I think that's it, Victor, but we can go one more.
Any questions at this time for Niall? Carolyn? Yay! I've also been told to give a shout out to our viewers at home. the millions of viewers at home. I've always wanted to say that, at the Oscars, like, I'd like to thank the millions of viewers at home watching. For our last report, President Benjamin Gare. Or Gurr. No one really knows. Most watched GA ever. Write that up. No, don't actually quote me on that because I don't have any information regarding that. So, okay, there's probably a couple million watching. How do you keep those numbers? How many people are watching? Just for like fun facts, like fun. 14. Woo!
Okay, we're nearing the end, so I'll make sure to get through this as fast as possible to also let people ask questions, and then also to make sure that I can pose in a strange position so the press can take a photo like they did at the first GA. I just want to make sure that, the cover can adequately humiliate me. So, reporting. So what does the president do? Just a quick reminder, there are 3 pillars, as you can see up here. Governance is the first one. Leadership and support is the second one. And advocacy and representation is the last one. I don't know how detailed people would like me to go into this at this current time. I'll remind everyone that this little piece of a larger organogram, as well as a number of other, resources to help navigate exactly our governance structure, how we operate, things like that, was something that I developed along with our communications and publications department at the beginning of the year. So it's all up online. You can feel free to check that out. So, just speaking to the governance, wow, that is hard to read on this projector. Yeah, wow. Can we zoom in a bit and see what happens? Wait, go back. Maybe can you exit the presentation mode and try zooming in a bit? Sorry, 1 second. I just want everyone to be able to actually read some of this. Wicked. That's a different slide. Sorry.
Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, technical difficulties. 1 second. Awesome, cool. So in terms of governance, there's a number of things that I'll report on that are, relevant to stuff that's happened in the last little bit. The menstrual hygiene products policy and referenda question, again, that happened last semester, as Elaine had mentioned. The conflict of interest policy, which has been sort of made into a guide. I wrote that up. It's not, something that is going to be a policy anymore, since there was a realization that was already in the Companies Act, so we were really just laying out how it functions internally, but that's done. In terms of ethical expenditures, that's actually a bit of an error. Since the Socially Responsible Investment Fund is taking just a bit longer to make sure that it comes out perfect, we are making sure that the policy itself and the fund are closely linked together. So yeah, it has been delayed. I do apologize for the delays repeatedly on that. The equitable hiring practices policy, we have a draft of it done. However, yeah, we're really trying to take our time with that. We're doing consultation right now. I've been working with the Vice President, University Affairs, as well as mentioned, our HR department, in addition to our equity commissioners and a few other folks who have been actively involved or have wanted to be actively involved in the process. Yep, in terms of amendments to the accessibility policy, I'll refer to that on the next slide, but that was largely referring to the Joint Board Senate Subcommittee on Equity and the subcommittee of that on Joint Board Senate Committee on Equity Subcommittee on Persons with Disabilities. They were putting together a accessibility checklist for events on campus and looking into integrating that closely with our accessibility policy, so making amendments to that so that all those needs and considerations are put into place as mandatory things when the society wants to put on events. And then I've also been working closely with our Indigenous Affairs Commissioner and the Vice President, University Affairs, on amendments to the Indigenous Solidarity Policy. We've been working largely in tandem as well with the committee that's specifically focusing on that. In terms of equitable governance reform, just to give updates to date, we had made over the summer by a researcher that was hired. That was the equitable governance best practices report. We struck a committee at the beginning of the year, and since then have been basically in deliberation. But hopefully, we're aiming to have a referenda question coming to the next meeting of the Legislative Council. Inside of that collective package is amendments to the current composition of the Legislative Council. Things being considered by the committee are a seat for an Indigenous students representative, a Black students representative, a person of color representative to the Legislative Council. There's also broader equity seats. And then there's also packaged in with that is some, stuff around remuneration. So looking to have people who are coming to the Legislative Council who are putting in that emotional labor in particular being remunerated for their work. So potentially having those councillors have some sort of wage paid, and potentially their committees as well, because the structure would not only come with a councillor to voice concerns or give a certain perspective to the debate, but it would also be similar to McGill in the fact that there would be a specific committee associated with that councillor that would be able to advocate around certain issues, be sort of the consultative body that would replace an executive that a typical councillor would go back to. In terms of political literacy and accessibility, I've reported on some of this stuff before, but just so people know some of the stuff we've done already, the organograms and video about what SMU is, how we work, how to get involved, things like that. Those have all been done or are now up on the website. We found a larger space in Frosh. It's now mandatory that at the beginning of the year, students come through our building and watch these sort of informational videos. It's part of one of the activities that they do. Seamless was a summit that we put on. Yep. And I think that's it for this slide. Oh yeah, and then simplified governance documents. So I've been working with my Secretary General on producing a set of non-binding governance docs, specifically the internal regulations that are just more easily accessible to people who maybe don't have experience reading incredibly long and incredibly confusing docs that could maybe just be simplified into a couple paragraphs of text per section. Yep. So in terms of advocacy and representation, as mentioned before, the Joint Board Senate Committee on Equity and the Subcommittee on Persons with Disabilities has been working on an accessibility checklist. We have finalized that checklist and are in the process of formatting. We've also started, though, in recent days consulting with Moose, the McGill Office of Sustainability, to make sure that a similar checklist that they are developing is primarily based around sustainability, but there are a bunch of points within that are focused on social sustainability. We would just want to make sure that there's not too much overlap, and where there is, both checklists are referenced, and we can try and disseminate that information together so that there isn't a situation in which groups are prioritizing one over the other. In terms of the Subcommittee on Student Affairs Policy and advocacy generally around mental health as well. So far, we've come to a tentative agreement with the university to draft a new appendix to the Tenure Review Committee's terms of reference. It'll outline provisions around a qualification based on service, so a service appendix. This will include, amongst other things, training on mental health, but we're hoping to wrap that in, especially based off feedback that we've gotten so far, into, a larger array of trainings and different provisions around service, specifically things like ensuring that professors have training around equity is something that people have recommended that we try to do. So hopefully we'll be able to fold that in. It's our intention that that would be done by the end of this year. And also have, as of this point, institutionalized training regarding mental health for all new professors at the university. In terms of Board of Governors reform, as the VPUA SOBAT did talk to a little bit before, this has been a huge priority this year. So at the beginning of the year, we had a creation of a board best practices report, which was done in consultation with a researcher, a few, people around that. We institutionalized, I worked with a bunch of the elected members on the board and have institutionalized what has been now called the BOG caucus. So the Board of Governors caucus, or a pre-board meeting where all the elected members get together to talk about, share information about their different perspectives from different units, but as well discuss how people are going to vote and potentially benefits and negatives to people voting in certain ways. I've been working with a number of people around the table at the McGill Communities Council, which is a group made up of all the major unions, associations of staff, students, and faculty. This by major, I mean more so like overarching. So AUS, SUS, all the different constituent or faculty specific associations are not around that table. However, SSMU, PGSS, Macy's, those are included, as well as some of like the more university or again staff and professor unions. We brokered an agreement between most of those to like set a complete list of principles around reform points that must be pushed. We as well drafted a letter with these groups and sent it to the administration, and then there's a motion coming to this next legislative council for this SSMU's legislative council to officially endorse the letter that was sent. This has been a huge amount of energy, but I'm very happy to say that hopefully that will lead to, I guess, larger discussions, and by the end of the year, I think the goal is to see some sort of like independent committee struck, which is made up of a lot of those people around the table at MCC in order to review board's governance structure and make recommendations for changes, hopefully also in line with the report that we did put out. In terms of, I guess, like other advocacy around the board, I'm organizing the first Board of Governors Open Student Forum in 3 years. That's something I've been working closely with the Secretary General of McGill on, as well as PGSS. The date, though tentative, is like March 5th. It's a pretty fast turnaround, and hopefully we'll have like a Facebook event and advertising up for that very, very soon. I encourage everyone to come out. You'll be able to like talk directly with the governors of the university, ask them any question that you would like. Also, they would like to have some presentations from student groups, so yeah, we're consulting on that. In terms of leadership and support, so internal restructuring and HR. So I've been working with the office of the general manager and university affairs as well as finance in developing a plan to like rescale back, like taking into, I guess, account some of the surplus that is going to be coming this year. I don't mean literally scaling back to the size that we were previously, but taking a few new staff back on board and making sure we're very careful with exactly what that looks like. This includes, potentially having like a new additional full-time staff. Tentatively, we're calling it an executive secretary general that would take on a lot of like the administrative and like organizational functions of like governance specifically, to make sure that that happens on like a much easier basis on a year-to-year basis. Make sure it happens a lot more I guess it's just organized more properly. And that there isn't as much of this confusion in terms of transition. We're also hoping that they can act as sort of the primary person organizing transition, and that there's a little more continuity and I guess like more of a formal laid out process rather than having executives on a year-to-year basis have to develop a new transition plan. Someone with past experience and knowledge transfer would be like ideal for that. I've also been working with the VP Finance General Manager and HR Advisor on just making sure that we can keep functioning on like as high quality service with less resources to help with that. That means that sometimes there is some shape shifting involved in making sure that some of those people named do take on positions that would typically not be involved in their portfolio, but things seem to be going well. President's Roundtable. We've been working on to distribute mental health 101 information. I should have corrected that. No, I believe we're trying to call it mental health literacy to like faculty councils. Not too much there. In terms of Indigenous affairs, though, I've been planning Indigeneity and Solidarity Week with the Indigenous Affairs Commissioner. It's looking awesome. And we've also been working closely, as I mentioned before, on the amendments to the Indigenous Solidarity Policy, which will be coming to council very soon. Missed projects. There's a few things not on there, like the MOA as well, which is looking incredibly favorable right now. Things like potentially having, like clubs being able to use the McGill name is on that, as well as a number of other things we've been negotiating for. So that's looking very favorable, and as well as like catering for all of campus. I've been working with the Political Science Students Association to put on a policy hackathon in March. I organized an institutionalized and executive shadowing program. Working with members of the board of directors and the broader McGill community, I've been working on an open forum regarding the recent events on campus and potentially opening a dialogue surrounding Zionism. And then, I've been working closely with the Democratic Governance Review Committee on the amendments to the internal regulations that have come forward recently, as well as considering, centralizing all power in the president for the rest of time. That was a joke. And I think that's it. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, come to my office hours. If not, you can ask them now, and that's it.
Anybody have any questions?
And the GA met quorum, which is, that's an achievement.
Wow. At this time, the chair would look favorably. Yes, Councillor Carolyn, I believe. You always do this. That is in order. Do we have a second? Old business. We have old business. Just kidding. There's no old business. Second. All those in favor. Doesn't really matter. Yeah. Shout out to the press and the homies watching. Thanks, Mom.